The moon cast its beams over the treetops of Sleepy Forest. Animals settled down in their cosy beds for the night, snug and warm in their homes. A balmy evening breeze perfumed the air with a soothing sense of lavender and chamomile. From the top branch of a tall tree, an owl with feathers the colour of freshly fallen snow looked at the canopy of leaves that stretched towards the horizon. The whispering wind travelled through the branches and created a soothing lullaby that drifted onwards through the night air. The owl lifted her head and gazed at the full moon hanging bright and luminous in the velvety twilight sky. She let out a soft sigh and thought about the moon-filled dreams she'd been having. They were lovely dreams, ones that filled her little owl heart with love and warmth. Her dreams always began with her perched on a branch on a night when the moon was full and the stars glittered and twinkled in the sky like diamonds. And below her, the forest animals were tucking their little ones into their beds for the night and settling them down to sleep. Soft calls of parents saying, "Good night, sweet dreams, we love you," echoed around Sleepy Forest. In the owl's dream, she was chatting happily to the moon like they were old friends. They had discussed how bright the stars were, but agreed they could be a little brighter. The owl had then taken to the skies and given the stars a good polish with the tips of her wings. It was a magical dream and had seemed so real that the owl had felt the wind gently moving through her feathers as she flew towards the stars. The owl wondered if her dream would ever come true. Just as she had that thought, an idea softly alighted in her mind. There was something she could do, a way she could ask for help with her dreams. She didn't know if it would work, but she had to try. The owl swooped down from her branch and landed on the ground. She searched the grass for fallen acorn tops. She found some and made sure to collect 3. She placed the acorn tops next to the trunk of the tree. Then she waited for something to happen. For the animals of Sleepy Forest knew magical help was always available for those who needed it. And one way to summon that help was by placing 3 acorn tops outside a place they call home. Within seconds, help arrived in the shape of a fairy who was half the size of the owl. The fairy's silver wings fluttered gently in the evening breeze. Her long dress was made of navy velvet, and a pouch hung from a silver belt around her waist. The fairy smiled at the owl and said softly, "You called for me?" "I did," the owl replied. "I'm not sure if you can help me though. I've never asked for magical help before. I don't know how it works and what I should say to you." The owl suddenly felt shy and looked down at the ground. The fairy moved closer and placed her hand gently on the owl. "Tell me what's on your mind. My name is Midnight. I'm a sleep fairy and help with all matters concerning the night hours." The owl lifted her head and said, "Even dreams?" Even dreams, Midnight replied with a smile. Her eyes twinkled like stars. Is there a dream you've been having often? Maybe one you'd like to make come true? The owl looked into the fairy's eyes, and in that instant, she knew she could tell the fairy about her dream. And that's what the owl did. The little fairy listened silently with an understanding look in her kind eyes. When the owl had finished talking, Midnight said it would be easy to make her dream come true, because she was good friends with the moon and was sure he'd like to become friends with the owl too. And polishing the stars would also be possible with the help of a little bit of magic. Midnight reached into the pouch around her waist and took out a handful of rainbow-coloured glitter. She cast it upwards into the night sky. The tiny speckles swayed this way and that as they travelled higher and higher. They looked like they were dancing. Midnight took the owl gently by her wing and accompanied her as they flew to the highest branch of the tree and settled there. They watched the shimmering glitter drift towards the moon and surround it in a rainbow-coloured halo. A friendly face slowly appeared on the surface of the moon. Kind eyes became visible, and a smiling mouth could soon be seen. The moon blinked, and then looked at Midnight and the owl. The smile on the moon's face grew bigger. In a warm, deep voice, he said, "Good evening to you both. Isn't it a lovely night?" His eyes twinkled with merriment as he gazed at the owl. "I have seen you many times on that tree, and I've been looking forward to the time we would meet, for I had a dream about you, my feathered friend, and knew we would meet some day." "Have you really had a dream about me?" the owl asked. She couldn't take her eyes off the beautiful full moon. "What was it about?" "We were chatting about the stars and how they could be a little brighter. You kindly polished them and made them twinkle like diamonds." The owl smiled and said she'd been having the same dream, and even though she would love to clean the stars, it didn't seem possible because they were so far away. The fairy told the owl she could help with that, and if it was okay with the owl, Midnight could cast magic onto her feathers, which would then enable her to fly towards the stars. The owl readily agreed, and at Midnight's request, she opened her wings. Midnight reached into her pouch again and brought out another handful of multicoloured glitter. She lightly sprinkled it on the owl's open wings. The glitter landed on the soft white feathers and turned them into shimmering shades of silver, gold, and sapphire. The owl looked at her wings in amazement. She flapped them slowly and told Midnight she felt like she could fly to the furthest star in the sky and beyond. The moon let out a chuckle. and said perhaps the owl could fly to the nearest stars, those ones which shone down on Sleepy Forest. And if she wanted to, she could give them a little clean. The owl tipped her head in reply. With a flap of her magical wings, she took to the skies and was soon soaring amongst the stars. One by one, she brushed the tips of her shimmering wings over the stars and made them sparkle more brightly than they ever had done before. The freshly polished stars glittered so much that rays of gold and silver light danced over the tops of the trees and across all of Sleepy Forest. An amber-coloured fox, who was having a twilight stroll through the trees, stopped walking and looked at the dancing lights moving across his path. He put one paw out and stepped onto the nearest ray of light, as though trying to stand on it. He realized it was only light, but decided to make a game of it, and was soon dancing and twirling through the lights and having a wonderful time. When the last star had been polished, the owl returned to the tree and asked the moon what he thought about her work. He said the stars looked amazing, and the evening was more enchanting now. He gave her a heartfelt thank you. The owl looked into the distance and asked the fairy what lay in the skies beyond Sleepy Forest. A world of wonder, something very different to your forest. Would you like to see it? Midnight asked. The owl nodded. Midnight held out her hand and took the owl's wing. They said goodbye to the moon before rising from the branch and flying through the air. The owl's wings felt strong and sturdy as she soared higher and higher. The fairy guided her away from the forest and towards the snow-capped mountains. Over the mountains they went. As the owl looked down at the green landscape beneath them, she thought it looked very similar to Sleepy Forest, but she didn't say anything to the fairy, as it would seem impolite. As if sensing the owl's thoughts, Midnight changed direction and led them upwards and into the night sky. The fairy told her the stars were different on this side of the mountain and were full of magic. The owl looked left and right as they flew through large clusters of stars. Midnight explained that the clusters were known as constellations, and they all had names. The fairy pointed to the nearest collection of stars and said it was called Pegasus, and he was a winged horse. And over there was Cygnus, the swan. Behind Cygnus was a dragon called Draco, and beyond that, a dove named Columba. The fairy told her to watch what happened next. She collected a handful of glitter from her pouch and cast it wide across the sky. The glittering flecks landed on the constellations, making them twinkle more intensely. With a shimmer, the winged horse, known as Pegasus, came to life. He stretched out his hooves and arched his back. He opened his wings wide, and with a melodic neigh, he galloped across the night sky, kicking up his back legs as he went. The owl watched in fascination as more constellations came to life. Draco the dragon blew out a shower of multicolored stars from his nostrils, which opened out and looked like twinkling fireworks in the sky. Cygnus the swan glided elegantly along, leaving a ripple of stars behind her. Columba the dove and Aquila the eagle held wings as they flew in and out of a couple of dancing bears. A lion by the name of Leo bounded happily from one group of stars to another. Lyra the harp struck up a soothing tune that echoed through the night. The owl smiled as she watched the stars coming to life all around her. It was a world of wonder, a starlit show of delight. Midnight told the owl to follow her over to a set of stars that was shaped like a shell. Once they reached the shell, Midnight asked the owl to stand beneath it and open her wings. The owl did so and wondered what was going to happen next. A tinkling noise made her look upwards at the shell, and she was astonished to see a fountain of stars flowing from it. Each minuscule star landed softly on her feathers until she sparkled as brightly as the stars themselves. After a few moments, the flow of stars stopped, and the owl asked Midnight if they would stay on her feathers forever. "That's up to you," the fairy replied. "You can keep some, and you can give some away." The owl looked around her at the galloping horse and the gliding swan. There were more than enough stars in this wondrous place, but perhaps someone in Sleepy Forest might need some. As though sensing her thoughts again, Midnight said it was time to return to Sleepy Forest. With wings strewn with stars, the owl flew back with the fairy over the snow-capped mountains and back to the familiar sights of the forest. The sounds of the night filled the air. Crickets in the long grass, fellow owls hooting to each other, the echoing, gentle snores of animals deep in slumber within their cozy homes. The owl swooped towards a group of fireflies who were resting on the leaves of a laurel tree. She noticed their lights were somewhat dimmer than usual, so she offered them some of her stars. The fireflies were overjoyed to receive such an offer and thanked her for such kindness. Gently and carefully, the owl shook her wings. A dozen stars floated free and fluttered down to the fireflies until each insect had its own brightly shining star on its wings. The starlit fireflies rose from the laurel leaves and flew away through the forest, shining their bright lights over the foliage. The owl flew to the river next and watched as a leopard looked into the smooth surface of the water. The animal's paw kept skimming across the surface as though trying to collect something. The owl flew closer and asked the leopard what he was trying to do. "I'm trying to catch the stars in the water," the leopard explained. "I see them here every night, but when I reach out, they disappear beneath my paw. But one day I'll catch one." The owl didn't like to tell the leopard he was trying to catch a reflection of a star, so instead she offered to give him some from her wings. The leopard was delighted with her offer and asked if he could have some for his 5 cubs, as he'd promised to bring them a star home one day. With a flutter of her wings, the owl shook free 6 stars, which landed on the leopard's back. He thanked her warmly before padding away through the forest and back home to his family. The owl came upon a sea turtle next, who was trying to make her way to the warm waters of the ocean, but had forgotten which direction to go in. From up high, the owl saw where the water was, and so dropped a line of stars to lead the turtle to the water. As the moon continued to shine down on Sleepy Forest, the owl helped many more animals that night. She gave lights to a group of shy dormice who were having a small birthday party in the fallen boughs of a tree. The stars given to them lit up their den, making it extra cozy. She helped a night monkey find his way to a tree that had the very best views over the forest. Stars were given to a family of porcupines who wanted to explore some caves, but they didn't have enough light to go very far into the openings. The owl's gift of stars helped them on their way. The owl helped a badger find the best place to set up a new burrow. He needed extra light to see how the surrounding areas would look in the daytime, should he decide to go for a walk one early morning. When there were no more animals left to help, the owl returned to her tree, where she found the fairy waiting for her. The owl said she'd had a magical night, one that she would remember forever. She thanked Midnight for taking her on such a wonderful journey. You are most welcome. You are a kind owl, and I see you've given all your stars away. I can collect some more for you if you like. The owl gazed at the star-strewn sky which surrounded her. No, thank you. There are plenty of stars for me here. Can I still talk to the moon? Or do I need your magical glitter for that? The fairy smiled and said the owl could talk to the moon any time she wanted to. And can I still polish the stars? The fairy laughed softly. You can polish as many stars as you like, and whenever you like. The owl liked the sound of that. The owl settled more comfortably on her branch and felt a delightful drowsiness flowing through her. She closed her tired eyes. Midnight said quietly, I will leave you now. Thank you for sharing this wonderful night with me. Good night, owl. Sweet dreams. The fairy disappeared into the night. The owl fell into a deep, peaceful slumber. Joy-filled dreams filled her sleeping hours. Winged horses galloping through the sky. Dragons letting out plumes of stars. Beautiful music coming from a harp. Dancing bears. Gliding swans. And a kind fairy who wore a dress the colour of the midnight sky.